lord, hello. So what has brought you to this tiny cabin? Why are you doing this crazy race?
I think there's a lunatic called Will.
Right.
His ideas have spilled out into this rather perplexing reality, which is us rowing around the UK in this crazy little space. Well, we'll be rowing up there, but people will be trying to rest in here while we do about a month at sea, rowing around the UK.
Hopefully a little less.
Hopefully
a little less.
That's the aim.
And what is the thing you are least looking forward to about this?
Going to the toilet.
Yeah, no, it's a real thing. Like, I mean, it's not like you have an actual toilet, is it? So
yeah, I guess it's just those things that you take for granted in life normally that are going to be stripped away for a few days while we're at this. And as you can see, there's not a lot of room.
So you're not going to go to the toilet in here?
No.
Yeah, that happens outside, right?
I'm going to have my own boat that's
coming alongside
with a really nice, comfortable area that I can just sort of swim to and come back. I think that's going to be the key. But yeah, I think it's those things that you day to day would take for granted that you're not going to have on here. And as you can see, it's tiny, man. You know, it's a tiny space.
I reckon we'll get used to some of those things quite quickly. I reckon the first few days are going to be a lot of adjustment, and then there's also the whole thing about the sleeping, just in 3 hour or 2 hour blocks. But I'm actually quite looking forward to that bit of it. And
sorry, the shock on my face. Why would you look forward to that?
Because I think for everything I've heard, actually your body does adjust quite fast. And I've done expeditions and things before where you've had weird sort of sleeping things, and actually it does, very quickly you become used to that. What you don't have is the anxiety of all of the emails building up and the Teams calls and the meetings and sort of having to keep a million things in your head. All you've got to do is just sleep, row, eat, take an eDNA sample.
Don't forget the sampling. Don't forget the sampling.
I've heard rumours of time penalties if there are samples not collected. So.
Actually, from that though, the email build-up that you just said, you started worrying about it. I was thinking, how are you going to do this? You're away for a month. How are your families feeling about this? How are your work? How are you getting away from the world for a month? How are you doing it?
Well, I'm lucky in so much as I live on my own and I work for myself. So
a little bit.
I've got a little basset hound that needs to be looked after, but there's plenty of people that want to do that.
Yeah.
So you're a basset hound with my kids, that's a good mix.
But yeah, I mean, to make the choice, I've obviously got work commitments and things, and training. Normally I'd be training for my Paralympic canoeing, and that's been put on hold this year to do this. I think in life, when you get moments of opportunity like this, this isn't a normal phone call, chatting about canoeing and rowing. I rowed 200 meters. I canoed 200 meters. He said, "Oh well, I've got this 2,000 mile rowing race." Oh yeah.
Very similar.
Where do I sign? But in life, you will find that you have moments that completely shift direction. And any time I've had those, I've shifted the direction, and out of that has come huge learning and growth and all the real good stuff. So, as frightening as this is to me, I'm not a rower. All these guys, Christ, this man here is, not just a beast of a man, but a very successful and, celebrated rower. I'm not. But the chance to be able to take part in something like this is incredible. And everything else will always work itself out. All that stuff's just stuff. It's just stuff. Family's important, but work and all of that. What an opportunity.
Do you have anything? I mean, I know you run your own company, so that's going to be a big...
Well, I'm lucky I don't actually run it anymore.
Oh, right.
So, a month before COVID hit, I handed it over to people who actually knew how to run companies.
Brilliant.
So we have an amazing sort of exec team. And so actually what I do for my job now is actually a lot more about the sort of outreach and communications and engagement with sort of, policy and things. So actually sort of an opportunity to bring awareness about biodiversity and technology and the state of the environment is actually a huge thing for us. And so I was sort of able to sell this as being important for my work.
Oh, that's the way to do it, isn't it? That's the way.
So I managed to have the conversation with our CEO, which went less along the lines of, please can you give me a month off to go and do this, with I've got this great opportunity to get some exposure and we're going to take some eDNA samples and won't it be brilliant. And I seem to have managed to have solved that. So really excited to do it. But for me, like, obviously when I joined the squad, I think now we've set the boats, I am going to be the only woman in a crew of strapping young men. So that's a really unusual environment for me to be in. Almost everything I've done in my life has actually been in sort of female dominated teams. So it's been really interesting already, just sort of getting to understand just how sort of teams of men work. It's great, but I don't have a family at home. I've always done a lot of expeditions, and I've rowed for a long time. So when actually it was my colleague who was co-opted by Will, because they wanted to include the eDNA samples along with all of the other data. So he came down, and I have a feeling basically Will was angling for cheaper prices on the eDNA. And Sam said, oh, if you want cheaper prices, you need to get Kat interested because, she's a rower and she'd be really excited about this. And he was like, oh, does she want to come in the boat? And Sam, who'd only worked for us for about a couple of weeks, sent me a message like, I think I might have just signed you up to row around the UK. That's cool, right? I was like,
Brilliant.
what have you done? It's never going to the end of it, ever, at work. But honestly, you say to me, like, do you want to do something which involves like a rowing expedition taking eDNA samples? Like, can't say no to that, can you?
But like that difficulty, so I find that really interesting. I've done expeditions on a much larger ship where I wasn't rowing, like science expeditions around the UK. And you go away for a few weeks and people get cabin fever. And this is on an 80-metre boat where we have different rooms. And people go a bit funny after a few weeks, just being stuck at sea together.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, we're not training to work as a team necessarily. We're all doing our own bits of science. But this is a much smaller boat than the ones that I'm used to. So how are you training to cope with that sort of mentally?
I think that was always, for me, when Will asked me, the physical challenge, I'm not necessarily concerned about that. We'll get fit as we go round to do this race. I think the biggest challenge is being in this confined space with people that you don't necessarily know that well for that period of time. Take away the rowing and all the other stuff like Hodgie said we've got to do. Just being with those people in a room for that period of time is very difficult. So we haven't got a lot of time, have we either? So I think we'll be doing, a lot of work between now and then, getting to know each other a little bit more. And I think the open and honesty and
just making sure everybody's in the same mindset about why we're doing it, what we want to achieve. You see this in businesses as well. Now that I was growing the company, you can have a really cohesive team, and then actually if you've just got even one person who's pulling in a different direction, or the negative impacts of that are huge. So just making sure that we all know why we're here, and there's probably quite a lot of sort of scenario testing that we want to go through, just in terms of okay, if this happens and this happens, sort of what do we do? So we've talked about some of those situations beforehand, and sort of know what we're going to do. We don't have to have that debate sort of out at sea in the middle of the night in a potentially dangerous situation when people are stressed. Because I guess one of the things that it's difficult to train for how you react and respond in a situation that is unusually stressful, because everybody has their different sort of stress responses, and it's likely we will be in some situations that are a little bit scary. And so the more that we can sort of think through all of those things before and just have a sort of defined response, the better.
And understanding people's triggers and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, that must be key, because you're all going to have lows, right? You're all going to have highs, but you're all going to have lows, and they might not be at the same time. So, knowing each other well enough to bring each other out of that, I guess, is going to be really, really important.
Yeah, definitely.
No, I think, rowing is kind of characterised as the ultimate team sport, and this takes this on a whole new level. And from personal experiences about kind of building teams in those type of pressure and performance environments, taking it to this, which is a bit performance, but it's more survival performance than ultimate time, because obviously weather's a huge factor in the overall time that we'll achieve. But sort of what's needed in terms of that performance, in terms of like tolerance, space, talking, phrasing things right.
Music.
Yeah.
What you're listening to, arguments.
Yeah, but how leaders and how they lead and all that. It's such a huge part of making. And I don't think realistically anyone will figure that out ever, because it always changes.
And it's so dependent on the
person.
preparation.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
And it's that sort of big realization and sort of intensity people are going to bring to it is the ability to stand back, and actually listen as much as speak, and all those sorts of things. I think we're going to get it back into Tower Bridge after it, and I think we'll all have learned a huge amount. Like I say, that's just fantastic.
But it's been great today to find out a bit more about the story, about what you do and the work around what these boats are actually going to be doing. There's no real way that you can get this level of information normally, is there, without us doing races like this?
No, I was saying before that it would cost hundreds of thousands of pounds for me to charter a boat and go around the UK and take these samples, which means I can't do it because no one's going to pay me that money to do that work. So what we've got here is the ability to get that data for me for free. So thank you for being crazy enough to do this job, and that means that at the end I get this incredible data set.
Is there anything that while we're doing it, I mean, you're not making immediate decisions, it's all being collated afterwards, I'm assuming?
Yeah, so the sound is going to be collected 15 minutes on, 15 minutes off, and the microplastics once a day, the eDNA once or twice a day, but it all has to come back to the lab to be analysed, so it won't be immediate, the data. What we will want is, a few months down the road we'll start to feed you back that data, so hopefully you're still excited about it. I mean, the idea that you can go past and say... I want to hear
about the bloody boat ever again.
I'm hoping that maybe, particularly with the eDNA, we'll be like, oh wow, I didn't know that we rode past a angel shark, because you won't have seen it.
Yeah, cool.
You won't have seen it. So that would be pretty cool. I'm hoping for you.
And that's definitely better to know out afterwards.
Yeah, you don't want to know shark.
Oh, there was a great white.
But and
what are our waters? What sort of state are they in at the moment?
Not great.
Not great.
Not great.
And getting worse quickly, or?
It's been progressive, but there are these tipping points, the same as with the climate. So obviously our ocean's a huge sink for carbon dioxide and heat, and we are hitting tipping points. Ocean acidification is sort of a secondary thing where they absorb carbon. That's great, yay, we're taking it out of the air, but actually that means they're getting more acidic. So a lot of the species that live in there can't survive, or they're having to move to other waters, or it's getting too hot for them, so they're moving. But just outside of that, ocean health is just so important for us as human beings. Most of us live in the coast. Well, we live on an island. Well, but 50% of the population of the world lives in a coastal zone.
Yeah. Is that really? Yeah.
Yeah. If you look at the countries, you can look at America, Australia. Everyone's on the coast. There's very few people in the middle. It's much less. So massively important to our health, our well-being. Financially, you might want tourism, but also just, where's your food coming from? Oh, actually, I'm fishing. Where's your revenue for this coming from? How are we going to adapt to climate change? Oh, the ocean's going to sort it out for us. Well, not if we don't look after it. So in the UK, our rivers are not great. No. We've been putting a lot of pollutants into those, and they come out into the sea.
Yeah.
So what I'm hoping with these data sets, the microplastics, the sound, the eDNA, is to pull that data set together to get that baseline, so that we can go to Parliament and say, next year you've brought in free ports, you've changed the shipping lanes, and strangely enough all of these species have now moved and they're not in the same place that they used to be. That's, it's a tangible impact.
Really
that
valuable,
we can
isn't
say.
it? Really, really valuable.
At the moment, we're estimating, we're guessing, we're saying, we think this might happen. If we've got people like you guys out there collecting that data for us, and the more people, the better. The more people who get out there and do this for us, the more data we get, and the more we can say, no, it is. This is causing that. It's not a theory anymore. This is proof that there's something going on, and we need to do something about it. So I'm so grateful that you guys are doing this mad challenge and I can get this.
Actually, one of the cool things about it is often if people want to look at sort of what the impacts are, you'll go to places that you know are likely to be heavy impact areas. The nice thing about this is we'll be able to show contrast also with the areas that are less impacted, and actually so being able to tell some of those positive stories about actually, this river is much less impactful than that river. So who's managing that? What's the land use systems around that? Because whatever that is less harmful, and it's maybe something that we can learn from and sort of spread better practices. And also I think there's a huge amount of work going on to restore ecosystems, particularly along the south coast of the UK with sort of kelp and seagrass and things. And actually, because there's 4 years of data we're going to get, and within that time frame, I know the kelp project and the Solent is a 5-year project to look at the regeneration of the kelp, and so within that time we should see things really start to sort of bounce back, and often we just end up telling sort of really negative stories and hitting everybody with sledgehammers and saying like can't do this, shouldn't do that, etc. But actually being able to say this works, like this is something that we can do, and look how quick it has a positive impact, and we can actually turn things around.
Now it's kind of real for me, like these guys have talked about. The bit is the engagement bit now, is making it real and getting people involved who wouldn't have ever been involved in something like this. So building the platforms and doing the virtual bit so school teams can join us, doing that activity, especially around how the crews are being built. And actually we've taken barriers away, hopefully, to enable people to think, actually, yeah, I could do that. And that's exciting for me as a, certainly within the work I do at the moment, but just the potential of what this event can do. And that the next 2 months especially actually is a big building program to create all that outreach part. So yeah, that's really exciting.